It is finally time to share with you all of the books that I read in November. I have 6 physical books in front of me that I want to share with you, but I also want to share this one audiobook that I listened to in November. It was, I think, my first official audiobook, and I will talk about that book kind of like toward the end of the video. So if you want to find out which audiobook I read for the very first time, you should definitely stay tuned. I think I'm gonna talk about the books that I read in November from my least favorite to my favorite book. So this first one, unfortunately, is my least favorite book that I read in November, and it is The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore. I finally read the first book in this series. I've heard so many people talk about the Dream Harbor series and how much they love it. And I also know a couple of the YouTubers that I follow said that this is not their favorite book. They are basically reading the book series for the vibe only. And I can totally see why this book specifically, people read them in the fall because of the book cover. It has pumpkin, it has a cute cat, it has like the fall leaves and the fall wreath and everything. So this is definitely giving fall vibe. However, I just don't really like the story as much. I honestly plan to buy all of the physical books in this series and then read them kind of in order, but I think after reading the first book, I'm just going to maybe borrow the second book in the series from Libby and see if I like the second book better than the first one. If you guys love the Dream Harbor series, let me know in the comment below which book I should read next to maybe convince me to continue reading this book series. If you don't know what this book is about, it's about Jeannie, whose aunt actually just retired, and her aunt is kind of giving her the coffee shop that she owned in this small city called Dream Harbor. Jeannie was a big city girl. She has a huge career in New York, and she decided to move into this small town to continue on her aunt's coffee shop. The love interest in this book is Logan. He is a farmer in this small town, and then the way that they met for the first time was kind of, I guess, weird. Maybe not weird, but basically Logan dropped off like a crate of his vegetable from his farm in the back door of, I guess, Jeannie's aunt's cafe. Jeannie didn't know that he was gonna come, so he basically startled her in the morning and she thought that he was an intruder. The thing that I don't really like about this book is how their connection felt super instant. I feel like he doesn't really share that much of himself to Jeannie, but Jeannie basically spilled everything about her to Logan, and I just feel like it's a one-way kind of connection, even though Logan technically was also into Jeannie and cannot stop thinking about her in like his chapters POV. Maybe in the second and third book the love interest connection would be better, but like I said, let me know in the comment below and convince me to continue on with this series. So the next book that I read in November is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I believe this book was published earlier in the year. I want to say in February because of all of the pink cover. This one is about Lucy, who is a single mom, and her, I think, 11-year-old daughter Maya called into this radio show asking for the host Aiden to help her mom get some dates because she thinks her mom was kind of unhappy and looks lonely. And I guess that little clip of their conversation went viral, so Lucy was invited back into the radio show to talk to the listeners, and Aiden, the host, was gonna help her get some dates. Because this is a romance book, Aiden and Lucy had this like connection from just doing the show late at night, talking about romance, talking about dates and love and stuff like that. I feel like the premise of this book promised so much, but the delivery of it kind of fell flat for me. I do like the writing, and I do have B.K. Borison's other books that I am planning to read in December, so hopefully those other books will change my mind about B.K. Borison's books. The next book that I read in November was Run for the Hills by Kevin Wilson. The writing style of Kevin Wilson kind of reminds me of Frederick Backman's, also Matt Haig's. And this book again has a very interesting premise. So I think the main characters, her name is Madeline or Matt. She only lives with her mom currently. She had a dad who kind of like disappeared, I don't know, a couple decades ago, and she didn't really know where he went. And then one day this man drove up Madeline's driveway and told her that he is her half brother. So he was dropping this kind of like news that her dad was his dad first. The dad also left this guy's family maybe 30 years ago to have a new family with Madeline's mom. He has been doing this, making new families, and he's making his way west to California. There's actually 2 more siblings that if you want to, you can come with me and do a road trip all the way to, I believe, Utah. I think that's the last stop before they went to California to hopefully find their dad. So it was just a very interesting premise. It kind of reminds me of that Marvel movie, what is it called? The Guardians of the Galaxy. If you know about the main character's dad and how he basically procreate with like different species in like different planets, it kind of reminds me of that premise. I do love the premise. I enjoy like them meeting the new siblings along the way. I feel like the ending was just okay. I definitely expected something bigger and more kind of like plot twisty, but it wasn't. But again, reading about each of the siblings throughout the book and kind of like their bond about being abandoned by the dad, it was just kind of like wholesome. Even if I were to rewrite the ending, I have no idea how I would write it because there's just so many possibilities. Anyways, this book was pretty good. I feel like if you like that premise, you should definitely pick this up. I actually won this specific book, I believe, from an Instagram giveaway, and I think this one is published by Echo Books. They actually sent me some of the other Kevin Wilson's books. So I have like, I want to say 4 or 5 other books by Kevin Wilson. Let me know if you have read any of his books before and which one is your favorite, because I probably have that in my collection, so maybe I will pick it up next. So the next book that I read is actually by Fredrik Backman. This is My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. The reason why I decided to pick this book up is because the main character's name is Elsa, which is my niece's name. She is only 7 and she is best friends with her grandma. I guess her grandma and her have this like tradition where the grandma would tell her stories from the kingdom of Miamas at the land of Almost Awake. It was kind of like a fairy tale that her grandma always tell Elsa, and unfortunately the grandma had cancer and passed away, and Elsa was tasked, I guess, to deliver these letters from her grandma to different people to tell them that her grandma is sorry. It was just a pretty interesting and wholesome book in my opinion. In the beginning, it's kind of like hard to get into because there's just so many characters that are happening in the book, and I guess after you probably hit 50-60% of the book, you kind of realize why you're learning about all of these characters, and you also see kind of like similarities of these characters in real life that is also in this fairy tale land that the grandma always tells Elsa about. So it was just a very wholesome story, and I love this book. I think if you're looking into another book by Fredrik Backman that you want to read, I would highly recommend this one. The next book that I read in November is Soulmates by Susan Lee. This is a YA romance book about Hannah, who has planned to have the perfect summer with her boyfriend and her friends, but then out of nowhere her boyfriend decided to basically dump her because he's crazy about Korean dramas, Korean pop and all of that, but Hannah is not, even though Hannah is Korean. And in another side of the story, Jacob, who is actually a K-drama rising star in Korea, decided to spend his summer back in San Diego, where he used to live before he went to Korea and became a K-drama actor. Hannah and Jacob used to be friends when they were growing up, and because he left for Korea, they kind of lost touch. And I guess because Hannah is single now, she decided to kind of help Jacob complete this kind of like bucket list and things to do of the things that he missed doing in San Diego when he was living in Korea. And of course, because this is a romance book, things will spark, everything is gonna be different, especially when you are like 17. And it was just a very like cute and swoony romance in my opinion. I have read one of Susan Lee's other YA romance book, which was The Romance Rivalry, and to be honest with you, I love this book so much more, even though this book is an older book of Susan Lee. There's also another book by her called The Name Drop that I really want to read. I haven't had a chance to like actually get them physically, but maybe I will borrow it from Libby. I'm pretty sure that book is also YA because I think the main characters just finished college or just finished high school or something, and they're interning at this big company in New York. Let me know if you have read any of Susan Lee's other books. I know she just wrote her adult romance book that just came out a couple months ago. I have that book already because I pre-ordered them, but I'll probably read that in 2026. As promised, before I tell you my most favorite book in November, I want to talk about the audiobook that I listened to in November, and it was What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. It was, I think, a book classified as horror, and if you know me, I am a scaredy cat. I don't like reading horror at all, but I had to because I was trying to complete the Goodreads seasonal challenge, and this is kind of like, I think, the mildest horror book options in that category, so I decided to pick it up. I honestly was going to read it on Kindle because I don't have the physical book, but for some reason I just really wanted to try to listen to an audiobook. I'm someone who is distracted pretty easily. I tried listening to an audiobook before, but I always have to keep rewinding it back because I got distracted. Like I said, like when I was listening, I was trying to do something and then I wasn't really listening, so I just kind of like lost, you know, the plot. So that's why I haven't really picked up any more audiobook, but I thought this one I could try it again because it is a very short book. I think it was less than 200 pages, like physically or in like the Kindle edition, and I think the audiobook was about, I want to say 4 to maybe 6 hours. But the thing I like the most about this audiobook is the narrator. Like, their voice is just the perfect eerie, scary like voice for this type of book, and I think the narrator is the only person who narrated the book, so they changed their voices a lot for the different characters, and I can actually tell the difference, which is actually great. So I wasn't really confused on who's talking in the conversation. So this book is actually, I think, a retelling or maybe a reimagination of Edgar Allan Poe's work called The Fall of the House of Usher, I believe. So it was about, I forgot the main character's name, but they received a letter from one of their best friend from like childhood. I think her name was Madeline. The letter was saying that she is dying, or her brother thinks she's dying, so like, would you come and visit me one last time before I go? And that's what the main character did. And when they got there, they see that like the front of their friend's house is filled with this kind of like fungi, and it just smells kind of weird. They suspected that that mushroom, that fungi, is what makes their friend is ill and like dying. So it was just a very interesting story. Like, the ending is definitely unexpected, and that's why I love this book so much. I think there are 3 books in this series, and they're all pretty short. I think less than 300, maybe 250 pages or something. So I would definitely want to try and continue with the series. But I think if the narrator is the same for all of the books, I might just listen to the audiobook because, like I said, the narrator's voice was just perfect. The last book that I read in November that is my favorite book out of all of the books that I read in November is The Bright Test by Helen Hong. This is the second book in the Kiss Quotient series, and I decided to pick it up because I want to finish this book series. There's only one other book in the series, and the thing that makes me sad is Helen Hong only write, I think, this 3-book series, so there's nothing else after the 3rd book in this series. So I'm kind of sad. I really love her writing style. Her characters are just perfect to me, and hopefully she'll be back writing sometime soon. This book is about Kai, who thinks that he is broken because he doesn't feel anything. He cannot really express or even show emotions, and his mom is tired of him just being single and never really had a girlfriend, so she went back to Vietnam trying to bring a bride for him. She brought Esmeralda, who is a mixed race Vietnamese girl living in the slums of Ho Chi Minh City. She decided to come to America to hopefully seduce Kai and kind of like change her life, but it was just very hard for her to do that, or just to get something out of Kai, because Kai is never really showing any emotion to other people. This love story is just very, very cute. I think if you love slow burn romance, this I think definitely it. There is some spicy scenes in this book, but it's very mild. Like, it's not really explicit, which I do like. I feel like the way that Helen Hong writes, the connection, the emotional connection between these two characters were just perfect. I love it so much. And if you have read any of her books, you probably know what I'm talking about. So let me know in the comment below if you have read it. Let's talk about this book in the comment, because I just love this book so much. And you know, the second book syndrome, where it wouldn't be as good as the first one, but I feel like I like this book way better than the first one. Those are all of the books that I read in November. I am feeling pretty happy about all of the books that I read. Hopefully in December I'll be able to read a little bit more holiday romance books. I am going to film that next.